What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday we had some unfortunate news that was shared by Nintendo with what's become very popular rewards programs just being ended. And the timing, of course, is bringing into question the idea of maybe plans for next generation with something new. But we'll go over that here today. Also, we had confusion and mayhem hit the internet yesterday with Marvel's rivals seemingly laying off their entire staff and the director, and well, it turns out there's a bit more to that story which we'll look into. And Tony Hawk Pro Skater, could we be seeing a new game show up maybe this year? Well, based on what's become a more and more familiar source around these titles, seems like we could be on the verge of a pretty exciting announcement. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members of the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with Xbox Game Pass games to close out the month of February. We can see this over on news.xbox.com. Of course, we do have the most recent day one release from Xbox or Microsoft themselves, Avowed. That is available cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. Just went live yesterday for the standard Game Pass version here. I've played almost 2 hours of it now, and I still have some more I have to do before I can at least give even some early impressions on this title, since the opening part is, as you'd expect, kind of like a linear setup for the tutorial and stuff, just to get you familiar with the different mechanics. Moving to February 20th, we have EA Sports F1 24, cloud, console, and PC. That's through EA Play. Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, that's cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. Moving up to February 25th, we have Watch Dogs Legion, cloud, console, and PC. Now, I also wanted to point out that there are several games that will be leaving at the end of this month on February 28th, which includes like F1 22 Grease, Maneater, Paw Patrol World, Space Engineers, Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun, Wolong Fallen Dynasty, Yakuza 3, and 4 Remastered. So some pretty big games actually leaving this service. As for this month, obviously Avowed is the big one they're honing in on here, but also Watch Dogs Legion is one of the few games that takes advantage of ray tracing well on something like the Xbox Series S. So if you're curious about that, or even Avowed, obviously going into the service this month, definitely worth a look. Also, we had another rating pop up for PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4, seemingly for the PlayStation Plus Premium with the Classics catalog. This we could see by Komatsu. They say Disney Pixar WALL-E has been rated for PS5 and PS4 in Taiwan. And there's no word right now if it's the PS2 or the PSP version. The thing is, I've noticed and others have this, that Disney is like all in on the idea of just throwing a bunch of these games to Sony for their premium service with these classics. But it's just funny. See, I mean, I didn't play WALL-E back then. I mean, maybe some of you did. Let me know in the comments if it was any good. It was weird. Back then, sometimes you would quietly have a good release for one of these movie tie-in games. Typically, though, they were pretty standard, like simple 3D platform type games on the PS2 and really kind of the PSP as well. But I don't know if it's one I'm going to go back and be like, I got to get the platinum trophy in this thing. But I mean, hey, it's just more variety for the PlayStation Plus Premium Classic catalog. We'll have to see, I guess maybe next month, they can announce WALL-E going in. Oh, and there was a bit of a scare yesterday, which you can see Wario64 posted this up. Said Hollow Knight Silksong listing is gone from the US eShop. This exploded online. It was like trending on Twitter over this whole thing that it disappeared. It was still up on like every other store, including Nintendo's own like Europe store, their eShop. So I think this is just an error for just the US shop, and eventually it was fixed a few hours later, and Silksong was just back with, of course, to be announced for the release date and price and everything. And it's just, that's where we are with Silksong. If there's any little movement, explosion online in terms of interest and views and discussion. It's just, this game, it's going to be so difficult for Team Cherry to live up to these kind of expectations, to where if there's even a little glitch in the URL to where it doesn't show, it just trends online. So here's hoping they can, when they are ready to show it, they knock it out of the park, because anything less is, that'll be a day online. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and two of their rewards programs that are basically ending. Now I say basically because one will still kind of exist, but it won't apply to Switch 2 games. The other one is actually coming to an end. There's an expiration date, the whole thing, and we can see this over on Nintendo's website. This would be for the My Nintendo Gold points. Now, if you're unaware, there are these gold points that it's like it's basically credit back. So let's say you get like 5% back or something like that, and it comes in gold coins, and those, or gold points, those can be spent on the storefront right then and there at checkout. If you've been buying digital, you've already seen these because they're automatically applied to your account, and you might be going through and it's like, hey, you have $8 in these coin or these points that they do kind of show as coins. That's why I keep saying it, but like they show them there next to checkout and you can apply them. It's just a nice thing to have. And if you have physical games, you can take that and then apply it to your account. I think you get like 100 points per physical game. You can still apply those, but they say beginning at 9:30 p.m. Pacific time on March 24th, 2025, users will no longer be able to earn My Nintendo Gold points. Now, they do say for physical games that released on or before March 24th, gold points may still be earned by registering eligible titles within 1 year from the original release date of that game. So they're having like a year window from the original release date. And like, let's say you buy, I guess, Xenoblade, I guess would be right there. It would got in just under the cutoff. You'd have an entire year to go ahead and register that game and have the points applied to your account. But they do say all earned gold points will continue to be valid and redeemable for 12 months after they are issued. So yeah, they're looking to cycle this program out pretty quickly. And my thing with this is it was only good for the consumer. Like, just, that's it. You get credit back to then use. And there are many times just from the digital purchases and stuff I was making that like the gold points would just cover the game completely. And it was a nice surprise. You get to the checkout, it says, oh yeah, you have enough points to just completely cover this charge. So it was just good to have. Now just removing that is just, that's it. There's nothing else, at least for now. And that's the biggest thing, because when you look at even the game vouchers, which this was updated, people noticed over on their website. And if you're unaware, they even describe it here. The game vouchers special offer, which essentially if you buy the 2 vouchers, you save money on the 2 games total. So I think it was like, what, $10 or $20 or something. But you'd be saying, hey, I'm going to buy 2 games and get a discount on this. They say Nintendo Switch game vouchers cannot be redeemed for games exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2 system. And I mean, this worked really well for Nintendo to help sell software, keep people engaged on their storefront, because while I know the big thing is, hey, they need trophies or achievements and stuff, having at least a rewards program is a good way to continue customer loyalty for your products. And this, it was nice to have it. I do wonder if they have something else planned out, because the Switch 2 games, I'll tell you now, I'm expecting them to be $70. Like, for their normally priced $60 games. Now, they could play around with remasters and remakes. Maybe they're not the full 70. Nintendo really hasn't shown us anything that says otherwise, though, when you see, like, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, and that's just a full $60. But going to next generation, I think they will want to play around with some of these percentages or discounts, and that's one of the reasons they're ending them now ahead of April 2nd, which, if you look at this, it's literally like a week before or something, like 8 or 9 days or something. I don't know if they'll go over their rewards program right then and there, because we are expecting a lot to happen April 2nd, but certainly I think in the weeks or even months leading up to release, they'll probably go over some of this stuff in detail, replacing it, because this seemed to work really well for them. So I don't know why they wouldn't continue it, and maybe it'll even be more baked into the system in general with the UI and attached to your account. Now, those platinum points are still there. So it was just kind of something you can do, almost like achievements, actually. And you would earn these platinum points that you can use towards, like, images or backgrounds or stuff, fun little things in different games and stuff. So that's still there, but for now, the gold points and vouchers not applying to Switch 2. Seems like Nintendo's shaking some of this stuff up on the reward side. Here's hoping they have plans for the Switch 2 to sort of continue this going into next generation. Next up, let's talk about Marvel Rivals, because it was absolute mayhem online yesterday when headlines were dropping that the director, the studio behind the game, was just completely laid off out of nowhere. In fact, like, you can see this, for example, from Wario 64, saying Marvel Rivals director and team laid off according to posts. That then spun out into headlines all over the place, responses everywhere, people confused. What's going on here exactly? Well, you can see Wario 64 did link over to Reset Era, and they pulled this from the LinkedIn's, a story and the post that was made here by Thaddeus Sasser says, "It's such a weird industry. My stellar, talented team just helped deliver an incredibly successful new franchise in Marvel Rivals for NetEase Games. And we're just laid off. They say, oh, well, times are tough all over. Let's find these incredible people new jobs because we all need to eat right." And they decided to go through and just highlight what some of the different employees there and developers did. So, I mean, that's a good way to at least put them in a nice spotlight as, yeah, they start looking for work. And the thing about this is people looked at that and went, hold on a minute. Who's going to make Marvel Rivals stuff now going forward? Because it did look like that at first, where everyone was laid off. And then you look over, Marvel Rivals, almost 300,000 concurrent players most nights. And then you look back at this, you're like, layoffs, 300,000 concurrent Steam players. It's much more than that if you include, I'm sure, PlayStation and Xbox. And then you look back at this and it's, okay, that doesn't add up. Well, as we started to get more and more backstory as to what was happening here, it at least started to make at least some sense as to how Marvel Rivals even still exists at this point. Now, we can see this was posted. This is over on Blue Sky from Nick Calandro, who did mention that there were 6 people who were at the studio in the US, and that's the biggest thing. The studio that was laid off appears to be the US branch that NetEase had been contracting out to work on, as you see there from the person who posted on LinkedIn. They have a level designer for gameplay, other things. So yes, a lot of things that were very important in the build up and development of the game. However, as we see with live service games and just games in general, it's the unfortunate nature of the industry. When the game comes out and things are rolling along fine, you typically see layoffs or these companies kind of shed some of the talent because they're no longer in full production to try to launch a game anymore, and there's just more people than they need, and that's why you have this cycling of developers. It's constant turnover in this industry, and that's one of the biggest things that's pointed out, one of the most frustrating aspects to it. Daniel Ahmed added some extra context here, saying, worth noting, this round of layoffs only impacts the team in the US, not the core dev team in China. It's part of a broader reconsideration of NetEase's overseas investments in studios. The firm has pulled funding from a number of overseas teams over the past year. And yeah, NetEase has been in the news somewhat recently for some odd decisions and random closures, like think of Visions of Mana, where the studio was closed down, I think right at or just before the game came out. So NetEase does seem to be reevaluating some of their investments and exactly who they have as contracting out, even in terms of this studio, this US branch working on Marvel's Rivals. And it's hard to say what exactly is happening there because, again, you look at Marvel Rivals, you don't think of layoffs right away. And so it seems like something we still need even more pieces to the puzzle for to understand the reasoning and the change here. Other than, look, they're based out of China, and that's where a lot of their dealings and stuff's going on. So it's like we're gonna keep employing the studio out of the US. We'll just keep it closer to the chest, if you will, here with the dev team that seems to be rolling along with Marvel Rivals content. I see it constantly popping up on the timeline. People really excited for the next big drop. So, I mean, it seems like Marvel Rivals still full speed ahead. I have to assume they're making a ton of money, which again is why the layoffs thing doesn't really compute for a lot of people when you see it. But no, it wasn't the entire studio. It wasn't the main director there or like the main dev team in China. It was a US studio that they were contracting out that initially seemed to get things rolling in development to then launch it, which for a live service game, you figure you probably still need a lot of those people on board, but I guess NetEase thought otherwise. So we'll see if we get, I don't know, I guess an article, report out of maybe Bloomberg or something as to what exactly happened here. Next up, let's talk about Tony Hawk Pro Skater, as we could actually be on the verge of an announcement for a new title. And when Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 came out, the remake of course, the original 2 mashed into one game, is awesome. I mean, it's a great game. I fully recommend checking it out, and Vicarious Visions did awesome work on it. But after it came out, they were then moved to Blizzard Albany and put on trying to get Diablo 2 and 2 Remastered or Resurrected out there, and then eventually working on Diablo 4. So it was unfortunate because Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 is the best-selling game in the entire franchise, and you feel like that would then warrant maybe a follow-up of some kind. Well, it turns out we might be getting that. This is actually something that was shared, we can see transcribed by VGC over on the Breakfast Club, their podcast. This is from the pro skater Tyshawn Jones. Says, I'm in a Tony Hawk game coming out. They got a new one they're remastering, so that's about to come out. I was in the last one, which he was. And basically what happened with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, they had the original cast of characters, but then they also added in newer skaters, like Tyshawn Jones here. So I say we've seen this before, that's familiar, because we've had skaters, musical artists basically tell us that, yeah, hey, new Tony Hawk Pro Skater is coming out. They did this before with 1 and 2. Now we're seeing it here with, what would you like to see? And this is my thing I'm curious about. Would you like to see them go 3 and 4? Or is it possible that it's Tony Hawk Underground 1 and 2? Could they mash both of those together and release it as a remaster? I'd kind of rather see that as opposed to 3 and 4. I know 3 is legendary to a lot of people. It was such a massive jump from 2 to 3 with that new generation with like the PlayStation 2. But we kind of already have that, Tony Hawk. I wouldn't mind seeing what they could do with Underground 1 and 2 mashed together. I think that'd be awesome. So what you want to keep an eye out for is when we go to, and this will be really fun, an Xbox Developer Direct in the future. Keep an eye out for Blizzard Albany, because that's basically what Vicarious Visions has been turned into. If you see them pop up, that might be the time for a new Tony Hawk Pro Skater to get announced. And that would actually be a lot of fun to just get a peek behind the curtain into a studio like that, working on a title in that franchise. Maybe even you see Tony Hawk show up in it. So here's hoping that is an announcement this year, because all seems like a game that if they announced it, would be coming out 3 or 4 months later. I'm thinking quick announcement, quick turnaround, quick release. So here's hoping. We'll keep an eye out for an Xbox Developer Direct with a mystery reveal. Might be a new Tony Hawk game. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about reviews going live for Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, which is still a title that I don't think I'll ever get used to. But the reviews are live, and the game is coming out this week, which we can actually see the reviews posted up over on Metacritic. Depends on the system you're looking at. I guess the one with the most reviews would be the PS5 sitting at a 79, but then you also have the Xbox Series with a couple of reviews at an 87 and the PC with an 81. I pulled a couple of reviews starting, we have GameLiner here, who gave it a 90, saying Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is an over-the-top spin-off packed with absurdity, mini-games, and endless chaos. While Majima's limited fighting styles and occasional camera issues hold it back, the game's compact length and lower price make it a fun, wild ride for Like a Dragon fans. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Gamer.no giving it a 60. Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii masterfully wastes the player's time with endless menial tasks and boring dialogue. While completely failing to tell the great stories the series is known for. Wow, just massive different opinions there. Again, opposite ends of the spectrum. I will say this, the game does have a demo right now, so you can just download the demo and try it out. But when I saw this and how ridiculous they were going to get with technically the Like a Dragon series has gotten more and more ridiculous over time, and really with the Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon did really start to go off that absurdity, like the rails for absurdity, but this looks like it's even further beyond that. So you kind of know what you're getting into in that regard. It has a lot of the elements that people really liked out of like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and it's fun for them to lean into that and really get new gameplay mechanics and stuff in the franchise. And it's a spin-off title, so you could technically play it without having the vast knowledge of the entire Like a Dragon series, so it might even be a fun entry point. But if anything, check out the demo. It's available now, just free to download, and see what you think. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you used the Gold Points reward program on Switch to buy games? 69%, because everyone says yes. 31% say no. So I mean, I was looking through and many people were like, yeah, even when I buy them physically, I'll still register the points. It's like, why not? It's there, right? So that is unfortunate to see that being canceled by Nintendo. Well, ending by Nintendo. But again, it seemed to work really well for them, and I'm sure they have a lot of the data on that. So I'm curious if they have something else planned for their next generation. But at this point, that'd just be assuming. So here's hoping they're able to come up with something, because if not, that is really unfortunate, because it was only ever good for consumers. Not having it is certainly a step down. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Yadaman says, I thought Fair Games was a dev company and not a game. Yikes. Okay, so again, people seem really confused about the Fair Games. I've seen this a lot in comments, just in general, social media all over the place. So very quickly, Jade Raymond founded Haven. They are the development studio behind Fair Games. Jade Raymond was at, they went to EA, Ubisoft, went to Stadia for a while, and was part of the internal studios there. Nothing came of that. Google eventually just closed all their studios. Then she went on to form Haven, who was then purchased by Sony a year later, which is still kind of a red flag because that's not typically how Sony would go out and acquire studios. That's why this whole Jim Ryan thing has felt weird when he first took over, because then we just started seeing this, just buying up studios way differently than how Sony would usually do, where they'd work with a studio for prolonged amounts of time before they said, okay, yeah, everything looks good. We've worked with you on several projects. Let's bring you into the PlayStation family. They bought Firewalk before they even put out a game, and they bought Haven before they even put out a game. And Firewalk's been closed down after Concord, so it's not exactly a great trend right now with Haven and playing into their favor, but we gotta technically see what happens with Fair Games. We have to see the gameplay loop that they have figured out, the live service elements that I'm sure they'll be leaning into. Or who knows, maybe it gets canceled before it even comes out. But the rumor right now, or at least word going around, is that Sony seems pretty happy with what they're seeing with Fair Games, although they were also pretty happy with what they saw with Concord. So who really knows? And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here on a card. Or maybe you wanted to see a PlayStation 2 dashboard that we unfortunately never got back in the day until now, when it's actually been translated over by the homebrew community. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.